Brian Lloyd, you're very welcome back to Flop Culture. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. We'll
Happy
get to
New Year.
our Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
This is it is technically. We can still say that's fine because this is the first week that it's back and it's normal, isn't it?
Do you have a cut-off point?
For New Year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
kind
is
of
this
really
going
is
out?
this week, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
going
when
out
is-
this week.
It's going to, yeah, we can still say it.
Yeah.
Like and when it gets into double digits, then it's
It's
getting
too
into
many then,
ropey
yeah.
territory.
Yeah. Yeah. Will it be double digits?
I suppose
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
whatever.
Happy New
Okay.
Year,
Happy
listeners.
New Year.
Happy New Year, Brian. Happy New Year, everyone. What you talking about, everyone? Okay, this is Unhinged. We'll get to our Pushing Daisies episode eventually. It's coming, people.
I swear to fuck. When are we going, please?
It is. But I need to bring the big guns in because obviously there's a new season of True Detective on the horizon.
Yes.
And there's a very floppy season associated with True Detective.
Very floppy.
Season 2, True
Yeah.
Detective. So I've brought you in to
you.
talk about it. But we can't talk about season 2 without talking about season 1,
Yeah.
obviously. Were you very much swept up in the hype at the time of release, or did you watch it a bit later? Because I watched it a bit later.
Did you?
Yeah.
I watched it as it was happening.
Okay.
I was hooked
Okay.
completely, start to finish. Absolutely. Couldn't get enough of it. And I think the reason why I liked it so much was because at least myself anyway, I hadn't seen that kind of a complex story, like a complex noir, like LA Confidential, James Ellroy kind of thing, done on telly, ever. I've never seen it done. Like, you look at murder mysteries, you look at like big sort of crime sagas on TV, generally tend to be episodic. Like Law and Order, for example. Okay, fine, yeah, Benson and all the rest of it, there's a will they, won't they kind of thing that kind of carries through. But generally speaking, they're episodic. They end at the end of the episode, guy gets killed, woman gets sent off to prison, Columbo, they find the guy and all the rest of it. It's very much
Weird that you're blaming the woman there in that scenario, Brian. That's
In
interesting.
Columbo?
I don't know, were you talking about Law and Order?
Well, in Law
Just
and Order-
interesting that it was the woman that went to jail.
Yeah, but like in Law and Order, they're like, I mean, in
Interesting.
SVU, there were enough kind of episodes of it where there were, they had gender parity going on in Law and Order. They did.
We love equality, girls.
That's what I'm saying.
We support women's rights and women's wrongs. Carry on.
Anyways, that's good. I like that. Women's rights. And
I can't claim it, but it is my favourite.
that's fantastic. But so like a long not a long, but like a serialized story that kind of unfolded episode to episode. I hadn't seen that done in a while, and True Detective really got that very, very well. I think the fact that you had Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, who were legit, like, I mean, this was bang smack in the middle of the McConaughey
Reconnaissance?
was that the
I think
agreed
it's
upon?
I think it's McConaughey. Yeah, but see, when I was Googling it, I think in Wikipedia it's McConaissance, but I'm surely like McConaughey-sance is better.
Yeah.
Anyway, the midst of this rejuvenation of Matthew McConaughey kind of moving out of rom-coms and into more quote-unquote, that was a weird way to say that, but prestige material, starting with The Lincoln Lawyer and then this. And also he'd never really done TV before, I'm pretty sure.
No, he hadn't. Like, I mean, if he had, it probably would have been like one episode of Murder, She Wrote or something like that. I don't even know if he did that. I'm just throwing
I would
that out
love
there.
to see that, Matthew.
Have you ever seen those lists of people that are on Murder, She Wrote? It's insane. Like George Clooney, Linda Hamilton, Bryan Cranston, Leslie, like they're, anyways.
It's like ER. Everyone was in ER.
Everyone walked through ER at some point. Yeah, exactly.
It is the McConaughey-sance.
McConaughey-sance.
No, McConaughey.
No, just McConaissance. But
Okay.
can we change that? Okay, maybe we need to change that as a culture. I don't really like McConaissance. Why don't we just say McConaughey? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Carry on.
Point being, it was bang smack in the middle of that. He was doing really, really interesting work, moving away from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which I feel was his best of the rom-coms. I think that was...
absolutely. Like...
Kate Hudson, that dynamic,
Brilliant.
come on, fantastic.
It was the one about the ghosts. That's where people were really Matthew,
Ghosts of
come on.
Girlfriend's Past. Like,
Stop that now.
Yeah.
Stop that.
I love a high concept. Especially in a comedy setting. But that was kind of like, okay, Michael Douglas is in there and he's got the cravat and, what's going on. Yeah.
Now, I will say, it would make an iconic episode of Flop Culture. So if you really like that movie, please come on and convince me otherwise. Keep pitching.
It's terrible.
It's
terrible.
Anyway.
But, so like McConaughey doing interesting work. Woody Harrelson, I mean, he'd done TV in the past, he'd done Cheers and what have you, but he hadn't done it in a long, long time. And I don't think, McConaughey and Harrelson had worked together bar, I think they did was it Ed TV? Do you remember Ed TV?
Vaguely, yeah, now that you say it.
Yeah,
oh my
the
God.
two of them were in it together, and I think they probably might have done one or two other kind of bits and bobs, but this is the first time the two of them were actually together.
Yeah.
So even on the basis of, you know, a noir Southern Gothic detective crime story. You still had McConaughey in his kind of, you know, his redemption arc, and then being joined with McConaughey just made it. It was one of those things that, like, it's such a cliche term now, but like, it was appointment viewing. You had to turn in every Sunday to watch it, or Monday morning, as the case was. And I loved it. I was fucking hooked. I had so many theories about it. None of them panned out. And I think that's the thing that I loved about the first one, and what pissed me off about the second one was, you can watch it and formulate all these theories and all these ideas, but when you get to the end of the story and it's not what you thought, but you've still enjoyed the ride, as it were. That's a great show. That worked in the first season. It didn't work in the second season.
Yeah. Do you think True Detective was meant to be an anthology series, or was it kind of... So you don't think it was like a one and done thing, and then the success of the first season, it was like, right, we'll build it out? Because the more I've sat back and thought about it, and I've actually watched all the seasons now, including the upcoming season 4, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the Patreon when it's done. So if you want to subscribe and get that. But a part of me feels like, was that one of the issues as to why, like, would it have just been, should season 1 have just been left alone and let it be at that? Like, should we have never built out this universe, and that's why it's suffered so much?
No. And I'll tell you why, right? White Lotus is the example I would use.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, White Lotus was initially planned as a one season, one and done BBC drama kind of thing. You know, when I say BBC drama, I mean as in, we're doing one series and that's it. We're not doing another one. I think if Nick Pizzolatto was a better writer, he could have easily cranked out a great second season. He could have done it. And I think this is like, it's a common kind of thing with music journalism, but like, it's the saying is like, you have 20 years to write your first album, you have 6 months to write your second album. And that's really what True Detective was in my mind. It was a second album, which is to say, you're massive success. Now you've got to go crank it out again. Now you've got to go make another one again. And I think he was probably tipped. If he had any kind of a sense of himself, I mean, if you have like Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson and you have the biggest TV station in the world on your side, you have to kind of think, okay, I should probably have something prepared for the second season, even sketched out or something like that. And the more I've watched, because I rewatched the second season, and it's so clear to me that this was like, he had an idea, and then when it actually came time to do it, he was like, oh shit, I actually don't have an idea. I've just got like a vibe and a couple of characters, and now I'm going to have to try string a story together, which is why when it came to like the final episode, or the second last episode and the final episode, it was like, oh, none of all this other stuff didn't have anything to do with it. It was just plain old revenge story. That's all this was. Like, there was loads of red herrings. And none of it went anywhere. None of it meant anything. It all just fucking evaporated. Like, whereas in True Detective, the first season, I should say, it felt more like it wasn't necessarily misdirection. It was just like, this thing that you thought meant something else, which is really good writing. Whereas in True Detective season 2, it was like, this thing that you thought meant something didn't mean anything at all, and throw it away. Like, and it then just gets reduced down to a very, very simple story. Like, yeah,
because the second season came a year after the first season, maybe even a little bit less. Do you remember the hype around there being a second season and the initial? Because again, I came to True Detective season 1 late, and I watched it and like binged it, and I wish I had been there at the time when it was being released to have that appointment television viewing, because it's one of those shows that I just remember so specifically, like the moments in it, and being like actively glued to my seat, like nails in the couch, being like, what's going to happen? But I remember the news around the casting, and obviously there was Irish interest. It's Colin Farrell, and I thought the two detectives in this were Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn. And I wonder if a lot of other people think the same who never came into the second season. And I also think that's one of the issues with the season, is that there's too many characters to follow, because the detectives in the season are actually Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, who's very good in this, I will say, and Taylor Kitsch, who people will know as gorgeous boy, Friday Night Lights, Tim Riggins, couldn't remember his name, remembered it there. Like, but there was loads of other people attached to it initially as well. You had people like, now a lot of this could have been rumour, but apparently there was like, because the show had become so big, like apparently they went to people like Kate Blanchett, Josh Brolin, Joaquin Phoenix, Michael Fassbender, Jessica Chastain, Christian Bale, Elizabeth Moss, Brad Pitt at one point. Like, people,
I remember the Brad Pitt one. I remember that.
People wanted to be involved in this, and then it just
fizzled.
Like, it kind of, like, sometimes I wonder if Rachel McAdams even wants to acknowledge this, you know what I mean? Like, it's
weird, isn't it? Because, like, you know, I think she was great in it. I do think she was great in it. And it's weird, like, I was thinking about it. I can see why everyone chose to do this. Like, you know, Vince Vaughn, he wanted to do more serious stuff. He'd kind of been known for, you know, Old School and those kind of like Todd Phillips comedies. And
he was attempting a Renaissance.
He was attempting a Renaissance. Same with Colin Farrell. He was a little bit further along the way, I think. You know, that sort of way. I
think we did an episode on Colin Farrell's flop era. I think, is this him just coming out of it?
This is again trajectory.
I don't think he's fully all the way out of it, but he's coming. And but again, it was that thing of Colin, you know, he obviously was going through his own personal issues, had a lot of flop moments, and then it was like, oh my God, he's doing Trajectory season 2. This is going to be the making of him. And again, he's one of the best things about this series. It's just a pity about quite literally maybe everything else, I would say.
Yeah, like there was so many, and that's the thing is like everyone was good in it, but it was the story around them and the direction around them was shit. But they were doing great work, and that's kind of like looking back on it, like there are so many scenes in the second season where I'm like, oh, that's so good. Like, you know, that bit when I laugh, I shouldn't laugh, but when he's beating the shit out of that kid, it's just, you're just like, oh my God, he's so terrifying.
He's so terrifying.
He's so terrifying.
He is so good at playing just white hot, rageful.
Right? Yeah.
He's not fully evil, but like there is something evil in him. He is the way that it kind of passes over his eyes, it's fucking terrifying. Yeah. He's so good.
And even Rachel McAdams, like that bit when she's doing like group therapy and she's talking about her sex life and all this kind of stuff, like again, it's that really like nuanced, you know, psychologically complex performances that I think Rachel McAdams doesn't get to do enough, like, you know, that kind of way. Like, and I think because she's kind of trapped in the same way Jennifer Garner is trapped, I think, is that like we associate her with such kind of positive characters. Like, have you seen Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret?
No, but I keep hearing really good.
You'd love it.
Okay.
You'd love it. And she's brilliant in it. And she's one of these people that, like, every time you see her on screen, you just warm to her instantly. And I can see why she did True Detective too, because her character, Bezarita, is horrible. Like, she's a really angry, like, closed off, walled person and all the rest of it. And it makes sense that she has all these kind of walls up and everything. So I can see why she chose to do it. But it's just, she was completely let down. They were all let down, I think.
Talk about the story then. What is... So we mentioned it's an anthology series. So for anyone who's, again, not familiar, it's a different story every season,
Every
right?
season, yeah.
So we're a world away from season 1. We're in Vinci, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's gritty, like very dark,
neo-noir.
Very corrupt, neo-noir. What is going on? Who are the characters we meet? What is the mystery at hand here?
The mystery at hand is that this city manager is found on the side of the road with his eyes burnt out by hydrochloric acid. Taylor Kitsch's character is this California Highway Patrol officer on a motorbike. He finds the body. Then Rachel McAdams and Colin Farrell are brought in to investigate, and it turns out that the guy who was a city manager who was planning this high-speed transit line through California, and Vince Vaughn is this career criminal kingpin who's now trying to go straight, and he had invested money as a part of this high-speed transit line and had given money to this city manager who's now died and his money is all gone. So he has to go back to his criminal life, if for lack of a better word, in order to make his money back. But also as well, he wants to know what happens. So then he has a kind of a sort of client relationship with Colin Farrell's character, where he's like, find out what's going on here, get my money back and I'll give you a piece of it. Colin Farrell has his own shit because, you know, he's divorced and he's got a kid, but the parentage of the kid is left uncertain. And then, you know, Taylor Kitsch's character is this war veteran who's suffering from PTSD, but he is also gay, or he's closeted. He's closeted, rather, I should say. Then Rachel McAdams' character just has this constant cloud of rage around her.
Was brought up kind of in a cult environment and really struggles with that. Her sister had addiction issues and she's trying to deal with that. Her dad was very hands off. The mum died as a result kind of the dad just being so hands off. Like as we're explaining this, is this so the core of the issue? It's so fucking convoluted. Yes. I found myself, like, I will say, right, I didn't hate it. Yeah. And I found myself wanting to know what was happening because I didn't understand what was happening. I needed to know where it ended because throughout I was kind of like, I didn't really get what Frank's deal was. It was only when I went back and read, I was like, oh, he was trying to go straight. He'd invested in this train thing. I thought it was just general crime things. Yeah. And then you're trying to keep on track of, okay, Colin Farrell, like, he's playing it straight. He's also not. He's corrupt. And Taylor's, struggling and he's meeting up with this fella that he used to get with, but he's also, like, seeing this girl to try and cover it all up. And he has this complicated with a relationship with his mum that's kind of never... It's just... Listener, if this sounds complicated, it's because it fucking is, unfortunately.
That's it. And, like, one of those characters would have been enough to sustain an entire season. Pick one and do it right. Like, it's that Gordon Ramsay thing. If you go to a restaurant and there's 57 things on the menu, chances are they're going to do 57 things shit. Whereas if you go to a restaurant and there's like 3 or 4 things on the menu, they're going to do them really, really well. And I think that was what made True Detective, the first season, great, the third season great, and consequently the fourth season very good as well, is that you pick 2 characters, you develop them really, really well, you make us invested in them, and then if the story gets all kind of over the top convoluted, we're not sure what's going on, blah, 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 at least we can cling on to the characters.
They're at the core.
And they're at the core, so they're our surrogate. So if they're confused, we're confused, and it's okay to be confused. And like, even something like, again, I keep going back to it, and it's just because like it's a California thing, but like in LA Confidential, there's 3 characters. There's 3 main characters. There's Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, and Kevin Spacey. And then, spoiler alert, Kevin Spacey gets killed, more or less in the middle of the film. So you've basically just got 2 characters that are carrying through the stories. Kim Basinger is supporting, David Strathairn is supporting, what's his face? James Cromwell is supporting. This though, we never knew who we were actually following. Who was the person that we're supposed to pay attention to? It's actually split 4 ways, and that's just gonna fucking confuse anybody. Like, even if you have 6 episodes or 8 episodes or however many it was, I think it was 6, wasn't it?
For season 2, 8.
Yeah, it was 8.
Yeah.
Right, so you have 8 episodes. That's hurting you, not hindering you. That's hurting you, not helping you. Because even though you've got 8 episodes, you're still trying to keep all those plates spinning and all the rest of it. But who the fuck, like, unless you're watching it with like a notebook taking notes, you're gonna get confused, like, because it's like the 3 officers as well are different, kind of varying. I'm gonna explain this so badly, but like varying police districts, and that's why they're all involved in and they want kind of ownership over it, and they're all kind of underhanding each other. But that's also the issue as well, is none of them really give a fuck about each other. You get the sense towards the end that they actually do kind of care about each other, but it's not that like insane camaraderie that you have with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey's characters in season 1. And again, I know I keep referencing season 4, and I know you haven't seen it yet. Just watch it; it's very good. But their relationship in season 4 as well, it's too hard with 3 people, and even when they try to get it, that it's like Colin Farrell's character and Rachel McAdams' character. Towards the end, where they're trying to kind of push that more forward, that it's like kind of romantic, and they're together. Like, I was just like, I don't buy. It's not even that I didn't buy it, but it was just like, I was like, it's too late. Yeah. I don't know. It's too hard to make. It's too many people. I have a theory, right? I have a theory that he wrote half of this and handed it in, and HBO were like, no, fuck this. Cut that out, make them fuck, and just make this way more simplified. Yeah. And then like the remaining 3 episodes, or 4 episodes, I would say, were way more, I don't want to say simplified, but they were definitely cut down, I think, and hewn away. And that can happen in a story, that kind of way, that it's like, this has been resolved, that's been resolved, so now we're just down to the core part of the story. That didn't really, I didn't feel that here. This just felt more like, we're just tying this off. We're just literally just cutting this out, and we're just going straight to the main part of it. Yeah. And I think that's why it failed ultimately as a season, like, is because so much of it had been cut away. By the time you got to the end of it, you didn't really care about the characters. And it's not even this bullshit of like, all characters have to be likable in order to get the story.
No,
that's not it.
I will say that's one of the points that I don't agree. When I read a lot of the criticism of the show at the time, it's that it's too dark and it's very grim. And I'm a bit like,
No.
I'm not really... If that's not your bag, fair enough. I'm not really sure. I think that's what added to it, especially in comparison to season 1, where the two characters got their quote unquote happy ending. And again, sorry, spoilers for True Detective season 1, but like they solved the mystery.
Yeah.
They're friends. They don't die. Season 2, everyone is fucked. Literally, no one meets a good end, even though you kind of seem to think it's working out for everyone, including Vince Vaughn's Frank, the criminal guy. I thought that added to it. I liked how dark it was, how bad the city felt.
Yeah.
I get if you're in a bad headspace, not exactly uplifting viewing.
Jesus,
but so much of the criticism was like, it's very dark, it's very grisly. And I'm like, okay. But then that goes back to my point of, was it just that it was attached to the True Detective name? Would this have worked as a standalone police cop drama?
That's the thing. That's the thing. I don't think it would have at all. Like, I don't think... The fact that it was a True Detective, I mean, yeah, that might have added a layer of expectation. It might have made think, oh God, I love the first one, this one's going to be great. But leave aside True Detective for the minute, just take it on its own merits. It's still a badly written piece of television. Like, it still has all those problems. Change it to whatever you want. It's still bad. Like, and even look at, like, and again, I know we keep talking about it, no one's seen it yet, but like True Detective Night Country, like, there you have the new name, Night Country. And it has some references to the first season, but not many. But you could easily take those small little Easter egg references, whatever you want to call them, out. And this is a completely standalone TV series. It's like a Scandi noir thing. Like, it has nothing to do with anything that's come before or since. It's just got the name True Detective. Like, and you know, I that's what I'm saying to you. That's a really well written piece of television. The first one was a really well written piece of television. The third season had its moments. I didn't follow through on it, but the second season is a fucking mess. And it's just because it was really badly written. And I think, you know, even stuff like the dialogue in it. We have to talk about the dialogue.
Can we please talk about the scene in either the second last or the last episode where Frank is saying goodbye to his wife? Frank has realised that it basically, this is so even complicated to explain. All of his casinos have been bought up by this Russian other criminal fella. So Frank's like, I'm fucked. But Frank's like, I'm going to get revenge out on them. I need to send my wife to Venezuela. She's pregnant at this point as well. And that was a whole storyline of them trying to have
that he was,
children.
Again, like,
it was very weird. Anyway, so he's like, I need to get her the fuck to Venezuela, sort her out. I can do it with all my criminal connections. I'm going to meet her there after, but I need to basically burn down all the casinos so the Russians don't really get anything, and then I'm going to murder them all, essentially, right? The scene where he's saying goodbye to his wife, who I'll get the actor's name in a second.
Kelly Riley.
She's in Yellowstone at the minute. It came up on my TikTok. I was like, what the fuck is this? Anyway.
Have you seen Yellowstone, by the way?
No, but I do. I think I'm going to cover it in some aspect for the podcast because it kind of fascinates me how huge of a TV show it is, but nobody I know watches it.
It's like Dynasty.
Or like two people.
It's like Dynasty.
Yeah.
It's campy. Like, you'd love it.
Do you think?
I think you'd love it for I think you'd love it ironically.
But is it not about like cowboys and or whatever?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a cowboy ranch and the Yellowstone ranch, and it's like,
I don't know if I give a fuck about any of
that. I don't either, but like, it's very, like, I watched one season of it and I was laughing my arse off watching it. Like, it's funny, like it's funny how kind of over the top it is.
Okay.
But problematic, massively problematic.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like loads of Native American people have problem with it. They said like it's just total bullshit, and like, there's a great article, I think it's in Rolling Stone, about Taylor Sheridan basically, like, you know, talking about, it talks about how like Taylor Sheridan thinks that, and this kind of ties into True Detective, is that, you know, white men are, you know, the endangered species of the world now. White working class men are the endangered species of the world. It's like, really, Taylor? In this fucking day and age, you go with that? What? And like, no. True Detective season 2 does that a little bit as well, I think, because like,
yeah,
like, I mean, that was what was great about the first season, and I think what they missed about the second season was that first season was about masculinity in crisis. The idea of like, you know, Matthew McConaughey's character is just repeating all this really nihilistic stuff. but it's all kind of a bit of a put on. He's just a really hurt person and a really damaged person, and he's trying to hide it in this sort of like, I don't give a shit about anything. Whereas Matthew McConaughey's character was a complete asshole to his wife, slept around, just really misogynistic, and in the end he got exactly what he deserved, which was he was completely alone. And then on the second season it was like, oh, actually, no, maybe there's a point for being such a terrible person as a man and beating the shit out of kids. Maybe that is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, there's a sector of the fan base that 100% did not get that message of season 1. They're just like, lads, yes, I was so dark and we loved it. Oh, yes, Woody Harrelson, yeah. Because even if you look at the comments about any of the, on any of the posts about season 4, because it's led by 2 women, it's like, bring back season 1. Would you just play season 1 again for fuck's sake? They just don't get it. And there's, in some ways, I think, was Rachel McAdams' character like purely to right some of the wrongs of season 1, and the fact that it was so male focused and the women in season 1 were essentially just accessories to these men, but even then they kind of did her dirty and with the
totally
way it was, like
dirty.
it's...
Yeah, they totally did her dirty. And like, even like, it felt like such a fucking cop-out in the end. And again, who cares, because no one's going to watch season 2 of True Detective after this. But like, the fact that it's Rachel McAdams and Kelly Riley survive at the end, that they're the ones that make it out, that felt like it was just sort of like, it's okay that all the men are dead and the women are going to go on. And it's just like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Sorry, very quickly to go back to the scene that I was talking about. So Frank's trying to say goodbye to the wife. That scene feels a week long. Like it's at least 10 minutes too long. For anyone who hasn't watched it, and I'll try and get a clip, but it's basically him, they're saying goodbye to each other, but she's basically like, I'm not going to Venezuela without you. I'm not, like, we're in this together. So then he's like trying to say, well, I don't want to be married to you anymore. And he throws out his ring, whatever. And then she throws out her ring. The scene should have probably ended there, but there's another 5 to maybe 7 minutes of dialogue in which they're both just like, we're so in love with each other. And she's like, I can't go to Venezuela without you. And he's like, you have to. And she's like, I can't. And he's like, you have to. And she's like, but I can't. And he's like, you have to. Like, that's the entire scene. It drove me and Kim were looking at each other being like, because to be honest, up until that, like, the dialogue goes off a fucking cliff the second last 2 episodes, because I do think they're good. Like, you mentioned Rachel McAdams' therapy scene. I thought, like, as I don't really know if it fits with the season, but like Frank's thing in the bed when he's looking at the water stains and he's like talking about his childhood and stuff, I did actually enjoy that.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally have Frank's wife's dialogue in the last episode is fucking shocking. Whole scene where they're leaving, Jesus Christ. That's
fair, yeah.
It's painful.
It is. Like, there's so many moments in it where it was like, the dialogue just felt, coming out of Vince Vaughn, just felt so fucking clunky. And, you know, like that big kind
of... But is it him? Is it the writing or is it the actor or is it both?
Both, I think. Both.
Because he's definitely not the strongest part about this.
No,
I don't necessarily think he's bad, but when you compare him to a Colin or a Rachel...
Yeah,
I don't really know where I land on Taylor Kitsch's performance, I'm going to be honest.
I thought he was good. I mean,
it's not convincing.
Like, I think the whole point of it was that he didn't know himself and he was kind of playing it very confused, which I think is the point, you know? That he played confused very well because his character was confused. So it made sense for him to be a little bit wishy-washy. The problem with Vince Vaughn, I found, was that some of the language he was using was so flowery. Was stridently and all this. And you're just like, it sounds wrong coming out of your voice. It sounds wrong in your voice and it sounds wrong with your character. And I know what he was trying to do. I know what Nick Pizzolatto was trying to get at. He was trying to get at that kind of Mickey Spillane, Raymond Chandler, like using big words but by tough men and all the rest of it, and I get it. It just sounds fucking cringy as shit. Yet in the first season with Matthew McConaughey, you are just hooked. Time is a flat circle. We are repeating this all over again. That whole bit where they're walking into the police station after they've saved everyone, that scene is just...
Oh my God.
Holy shit. Like, and even the bit when, like, and I still think about it, this is the best cap to an episode I've ever, like the end of an episode I've ever seen, is when he's talking to the 2 detectives and he goes, how indeed? How is it that we found this body 25 years ago? And then here it is again. And he just turns it over and he goes, start asking the right fucking questions. And then the music hits. And you're just like, I'm fucking in. That never happened in this season. Never once happened did it feel like, oh shit, something's happened here. Never happened. And that's just bad writing.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more right after this. You're very welcome back. Brian, I do want to ask, I feel we're coming in hard. I think we're right to come in hard.
Yeah.
Does anything about this show work for you? I've talked about the setting and kind of the grisliness, and obviously there are specific performances for me. Does anything about this work for you?
Plenty. Yeah. Plenty. Like, I think Colin Farrell was great in it. I thought he was really interesting. I think this was at a very pivotal moment in his career, I think, where he was transitioning away from leading roles into more sort of character-driven stuff. This was very much a character-driven performance for him. I think Rachel McAdams, she got to do work that she doesn't generally get to do. We talked about it a little bit. I think we should talk about it more. Taylor Kitsch, I thought, was great in this because he was coming off the back of a massive, massive flop, John Carter. And he was being positioned as this, like, he's going to be fucking huge.
What's John Carter?
John Carter was this sci-fi adventure that Disney did that bombed massively.
Okay.
And it kind of set Taylor Kitsch back 20 years. And the director of it, Andrew Stanton, had done like Toy Story, and he was one of these Pixar people. And this was his first live action film. And people were like, I remember people were talking about John Carter as being a possible Oscar kind of hopeful, like, because the tone of it was really like epic and like Lord of the Rings, and then it just was a wet fart and went nowhere. I still think people are wrong about it. You should watch it. I love it. I think it's great. But anyways, John Carter bombed, and then he went and did this, I think like about a year or two after it, like, or maybe like 6 months, I can't remember. But he was still kind of, you know, B to possible A-list actor.
Because he was the breakout of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah,
like, everyone remember. The sad thing is, I don't think people remember his name, but people remember the name Tim Riggins. You know what I mean?
He was like, that's it. Like True Light, I think True Detective. I think Friday Night Lights had, you know, that was the launch pad. That was like the ER, his ER. So like people were kind of positioning him for a sort of a George Clooney kind of thing, going from TV to movies. So to see him going back to TV wasn't a step back, because this was prestige television, and this was like the age of prestige television, so it wasn't seen as a step back from. I think he was really good in it. I think the character he played was unusual in the sense of you don't generally tend to see, you know, neo-noir crime stories deal with closeted homosexuality in that kind of way. And anytime you do see kind of homosexual characters played in these stories, it's usually as the butt of a joke, or they're kind of seen as passive characters, or they're sort of like just, you know, window dressing, you know, that sort of way, whereas he had a pivotal role to play in it. Yeah, and like I loved, you know, like Leonard Cohen doing the opening music for it, I thought was really good. It had that kind of like really jazzy sort of thing going. Yeah, it had its moments, but, you know, the difference between the first season and second season is like literally night and day. Like even the fact that like they kept changing the directors for each episode. Like you had Justin Lin do the first 2 episodes. Justin Lin, for anyone who didn't know, was a music video director and then went off and did Fast and Furious and then did Star Trek Beyond. Pretty much a blockbuster director. Then throughout the season, then you had our own John Crowley, who was coming off the back of...
Go on, John.
I think he was doing Brooklyn while he was doing this, because I remember interviewing him for Brooklyn and asking him about True Detective. And it's funny in a way, because he kind of talked about True Detective like it was a job. And you can really see that. You can see that he was just like, okay, I know how to direct. I know how to do this kind of a sort of TV cop drama thing. I can do it pretty well. I can put a bit of, you know, flash on it, and I can put a bit of a spin on it, but ultimately I'm just kind of moving stuff around here. Like, compare that to what he did in Brooklyn, and it's a completely different set of, you know, you can see when he gives a shit, and then you can see when he's, I don't want to say phoning it in, but working a job. he's doing it to the best of his abilities, but he's not putting any of his soul into it. Like, and I think that's kind of the problem that I have with this as well. Is that yes, there's a consistent tone, but it's a pretty uninteresting one. It's just very standard. It's like, you know, the tone was set, the imagery was set, the sort of cinematography was set, and then they just brought in people to just sort of like keep the thing going. And then by the time it got to the end of it, it's like, okay, well, there's nothing really going on here. Compare that with True Detective. Again, you had Kari Joji Fukunaga. You know, there are so many scenes in that series where visually it looks incredible. Like there's that 6-minute unbroken run with Matthew McConaughey trying to get a guy out of this trailer park. There's brilliant, incredible. Like, and then in the third season, there's another scene in it when there's like a bomb goes off in a house and it's a whole thing. I can't think of one scene bar that big shootout.
Which I will say,
very well done.
Very well done.
But that's
very tense. Like,
yeah, very, very tense. That's the one thing I can pick out of my head. I could point out 5 or 6 different scenes in the first season. I could pick out about 4 or 5 scenes in the third one. And even in the new one coming out, I can think of a few scenes in it that stick out in my head. In the second season, I can think of one, and that's it.
Yeah. How responsible then do you think Nick Pizzolatto is for this flopping?
100% responsible.
Yeah.
It was all on him. It was, because he had very well documented problems with Kari Fukunaga, the director. He, I think, is a director, or as a writer, I think he is bound up in his ego quite a bit, because he talked about it in the first season that like he actually grew up in that area that the first season is set. He's from there, and he talked about how I'd never go back there unless I had a big huge production behind me. Like, so he's I think he's a very kind of tetchy, vulnerable kind of creator. And I think in the second season, he had full control over everything, which is why he kind of picked, I don't want to say journeyman directors, but like he definitely picked directors that he could push around a bit. But subsequently, he didn't have the time and the space to make something as layered and as detailed as the first season was. So consequently, it became out lesser as a result. But yeah, I think it was 100% his fault. Like, I think, you know, Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, Taylor Kitsch, Vince Vaughn, they're all very, very well, they're all very, very good in it. It's just the story is shit and the script is shit and the direction is bland. And yeah, it 100% falls to him, like. And that's the thing, and like, to be fair, that's the thing in TV, is that there's always one person behind it. You know, that kind of way. Like, you look at Bridgerton, it's Shonda Rhimes. You look at Lost, it was Damon Lindelof. You look at The Sopranos, it's David Chase. You look at Breaking Bad, it's Vince Gilligan. You look at True Detective, it's Nick Pizzolatto. So if it all falls to shit, they're the person that have the fault with it, because they have so much creative control.
Yeah.
It's not like movies where, you know, there's an army of producers standing by ready to start picking it apart. And then if the producers don't like it, they can kind of fire the director and just bring in an editor and chop it up. That's happened plenty of times. With TV, the showrunner has the power, and he had the power, and what he turned out was just not good.
Yeah.
So it falls to him 100%.
Michael Lombardo was the president of programming at HBO at the time, and he said in an interview about, well, he said, our biggest failures, and I don't know if I would consider True Detective 2, but when we tell somebody to hit an air date as opposed to allowing the writing to find its own natural resting place, when it's ready, when it's baked, we failed. I set him, referring to Pizzolatto, up to deliver in a very short time frame something that became very challenging to deliver.
Yeah, that's it. That's 100% it. And I think as well, the fact that he was given a third season probably speaks to the culture of HBO being like, okay, we set you up to fail here. This didn't work out. I think there was like
again.
Yeah, try again. There was like a 2-year gap, I think I want to say, 2 or 3 year gap between season 2 and season 3. There was a fair enough gap.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact figure, but
I'm trying to figure out. I try and figure out timescales of shows by what house I was renting in, and I can't remember that one. So,
but it was
pre-pandemic, right?
It was, yeah. And I think it went into the start of the pandemic. Point being,
season 3 is Mahershala Ali and we've talked
and Stephen
about it
Dorff,
already. Yes, yeah.
And there was enough of a gap in it that he had time to kind of sit and write it properly, I guess.
And also time away from season 2 to hopefully like people
let the bad smell go away.
Hey, remember that season? That was shit. No, you don't. Here's season 3. Perfect, brilliant.
And to be fair, again, that's another. I think that speaks to the strength of the first season. Is it that people were willing to give the third season a go, and even the new season as well. People are like, oh yeah, I love the first season. I don't know if I watched the third season. I definitely didn't like the second season. I'll probably give this fourth season a go. And that's it. Like, do you have the note? Do you have the date? Go on.
Between seasons 2 and 3, it was 4 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
4-year gap.
3.5 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is plenty of time.
Yeah. I mean, just a strange little show. Would you say one of the worst that decade? Because it hit a lot of worst of 2015 lists. Like it was on Variety, New York Post, Newsday, TV Guide. I was trying to compare to what else had come out that year. So I think Better Call Saul started that year.
Yeah.
In terms of one of the worst, I'm looking at the worst TV shows of 2015 from Variety, and to be honest, they do acknowledge in the first paragraph that it's like the headline is just kind of grabby to try and get people in. They say no list can really identify the worst TV shows of any given year because they share tonnage and volume overwhelms any attempt to watch all of them. Oh my God, if they could see where we are in 2024. But in terms of what else is in that list, you had the only one of significance that I saw was Fear the Walking Dead, which is I
never got into
Walking Dead spin-off. Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah. My wife was big into it. My wife loved The Walking Dead. But like, that was a show that just went too fucking long and started repeating itself and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
No, like, I think, was it the worst TV show of that era? Yeah, probably was, in fairness. Like, I think it's, like, there's a lot to be said for lowered expectations, I think. And this was the exact opposite of it. This was sky high expectations because the first season was so critically and, audiences loved it. It wasn't just one of those shows where critics were going on about it and nobody watched it. Everybody watched it. It was, I hate saying this because it's not really a thing anymore, but like, it was a water cooler TV show.
People are protective over it to this day. Again, based on the comments that I see, like, it's very... The fandom, if you can call it, I'm not sure you can, but whatever.
I don't think
it's
crazy. It's people really did identify.
They'll go to bat for it, like.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Like, and I think, in the same way that, like, I think, like the first season had a lot of problems, but I think they were overshadowed or at least overlooked by, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and the fact that it was unique in that time frame.
And it had a clear vision.
And it had a clear vision. And you knew what the story was, and you were able to follow it. The second season did not have any of that. It just didn't. And we can sit here and pull it apart, but ultimately it just didn't have a clear vision of itself. It didn't really know where it was going. And like, sometimes that can work. Like, you look at Lost, Lost was a show that completely lost the run of itself after 3-4 seasons, but people still turned into it. People still watched it. Yeah, they were given out or whatever, but they were still watching it because the characters were there. That you'd still tune in to see, what's Locke gonna do? What's Sawyer gonna do? This True Detective doesn't have that. When it comes to the end of the season, that's it. Those characters are gone, and you've got to reconnect with a new set of characters. And I think in this. In True Detective, as much as they tried to develop those characters and tried to make them kind of believable and understandable and all the rest of it, they were circling a story that just was complete dog shit. So, like, you could have these really interesting characters, really well-written characters, but the story that they were kind of knocking around in was shit. And I think that's one of the fundamental problems with these prestige television shows, is that you can write these really in-depth, complex, morally questionable characters, but the story has to make sense. The story has to work. And True Detective is a prime example of really interesting characters in a completely dogshit story. Like,
not even Colin Farrell can.
Not even Colin Farrell and that great mustache he had.
Oh.
We should talk about that.
He looks brilliant. That's another podcast, Brian, I'm afraid. We just simply don't have time.
But, okay, right. In all seriousness, like, I would love to know what was the thinking there. Is it like, I'm playing dirtbag, so I've got to have the mustache and the goatee?
Yeah.
But then what was going on with the curtains, like?
Because then he loses the mustache after the shootout. Was he like, that's a step too far, the mustache needs to be gone?
Yeah.
But then he's committing to the work with Frank then. So surely, I don't know.
I don't know, you would think
That's
he would...
interesting.
That's it.
The next time you interview Colin Farrell, will you ask him that?
About the mustache?
I wonder if he's a bit touchy about it.
I don't know.
I don't think he is. He doesn't seem really touchy about any of his quote-unquote flops, per se.
I know, because I know a lad that interviewed him and like wouldn't shut up talking about Miami Vice, and he was happy to talk about it, like, and stuff like that. I think he's good. I think he's in good enough of a place now that he can kind of unwrap, you know, his, like, I mean, remember we were talking about Britney Spears and all the rest of it. Like, he seemed pretty open about it. Like, you know, and he loves Irish journalists as well. I know that. Yeah. So I can probably kind of rope that out of him a bit. I do love him in a mustache, though. I have to say,
him in a mustache too. Oh my God.
I think him in a dirtbag mustache.
Yeah, I'm just glad it didn't tank his career, and also didn't put him off television, because he's also now going to be in the Penguin series.
Looking forward to that,
which I'm really, really looking forward to. Yeah. I'm excited. Brian, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you? You also have a podcast now. Talk about that.
I do, yeah. It's called He Ain't Heavy. It's me and my brother. It's terrible. I don't know why we're doing it.
Perfect.
Listen in though, good fun, you know. And on Instagram, Brian M. Lloyd. I deleted my Twitter yesterday.
Yes.
Got rid of it because
are you on Threads?
Yeah. But
I think we might get flop culture on Threads. I'm not ready to come back on Threads.
I feel like there's a flop culture episode coming about Threads.
Yeah.
Feel like there's one coming. Yeah. Because it's been a bit of a flop.
Yeah, kind of.
And Blue Sky is the same as well. Social media generally, if you know, in 5 years' time, when the flop culture TV show is in its 10th season,
I'm obsessed with this optimism.
I want to see an episode about social media as a flop.
Brilliant.
Because it was a flop.
Yeah, it is, truly. It's ruined my life.
Social media is in a flop era. You have to admit that, don't you?
Oh, no, it is. Yeah, 100%. But you are on all social medias, bar Twitter, if you want to be found.
Bar Twitter, yeah.
Perfect. Brilliant. And you're occasionally on Movies and Booze with me. So
Movies and Booze, yeah, of course.
And then on Moncrief,
Yeah, on Moncrief, and then Ireland AM as well. So
yeah. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to do Pushing Daisies in 2030, maybe. We'll find time. We'll find time.
We'll find it out.
We'll figure it out. Brian Lloyd, thank you so much for being on Flop Culture.
Thank you.